were talking before the break about anti-Semitism. I can tell you now, Michael Gove, he's been speaking out this morning about that very subject. Listen.
We know now that it is genuinely dangerous for people to be openly, clearly, proudly Jewish near these marches. At a time when we're all encouraged to be our whole authentic selves, to celebrate our identity, to be out and proud. There is only one group told that they, and they alone, can only be tolerated on terms set by others, Jews.
Indeed, he says the UK risks descending into darkness of anti-Semitism. We were trying to get to the bottom of this then. How do you get to the root of it all? What do you think to what Michael
Michael
saying?
clearly hasn't got a grasp of the problem, has he? Because he talks about celebrating one's identity and being out and proud, which is all fine, absolutely. If you're gay, you shouldn't feel constrained in any way whatsoever. But we saw the police the other day requiring a Jewish man to leave the area of a march because he was Jewish in order to keep the peace. So this wasn't a far-left group or a far-right group having a go at this Jewish gentleman. It was the police. And this is what I mean about the regulatory framework. The police are encouraged to promote ethnic minorities, and they don't see the Jewish minority as an ethnic minority. They're encouraged, trained, led by the nose to promote ethnic minorities, and that's why I think the Palestinian marches are given such soft-touch policing, in part also because I think there's just no way they could control 300,000 people walking from Hyde Park to Nine Elms. But in part, it's because they have been told this is the right way to police. We've got to celebrate these ethnic minorities. We've got to allow them their opportunity to protest. And indeed, gays for Palestine and lesbians for Palestine and everything else. And it's the regulatory framework that has to change. And people like Michael Gove say, oh, we don't want to get caught in a discussion on culture wars. It's not about a culture war. It's about settling our society. We cannot have a prosperous, settled United Kingdom if we haven't got a broadly settled, harmonious society. We'll never reach utopia, obviously. But the direction we're heading in is extremely divisive, and he just doesn't get the problem.
No, is that fair?
It is fair, but I think that, for me, the biggest problem with what Michael Gove said, I think he's correctly outlined the issue of anti-Semitism. He's very right in the fact that he draws attention to that Jews are the only group of people who are told to put their Star of David away rather than wearing their identity as a sort of badge of pride. And that's become very obvious since the 7th of October. That kind of discrimination has just become pretty much commonplace for a lot of Jews. But you know, we have to put his speech into context, which is that Gove has got this bill that he really wants support for, that he's pushing, which will be about banning British public bodies from boycotting Israel, from taking part in BDS. Now, I have no interest in BDS. I don't support it. I think that at the very best, it turns a blind eye to some really nasty anti-Semitism, and at worst, it actually openly promotes the sort of singling out of Israel and a lot of the time of Jews for, you know, unique treatment, bad treatment. But banning British public bodies from deciding what they invest in with their pensions or to make their political decisions, that is a step too far into the realm of state overreach. And I just come back to this point, which is that we know that there's a problem with anti-Semitism. We know that there's a particular problem, actually, within the causes of anti-Semitism being, maybe this is what you were touching on, Ben, a sort of an increasing influence of Islamism, particularly on these marches, which is no interest in freedom, no interest in democracy, is very, you know, certainly no interest in sort of open discussion. But rather than saying, well, we are a country where we really believe in these things, tolerance, free speech, you know, being able to freely express yourself, whether you're a Jew or anyone else, instead of making that argument and winning that argument, we seem to just want to hit the ban button. That won't convince these people to change their minds. It certainly won't convince people on the sidelines who then see these people on marches as free speech. We end up turning them into free speech martyrs who say, you know, I have been banned.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree.
It's just such a gift to these people who don't care about free speech at all. I think you end up making quite a painful argument, which is that standing up for freedom of speech, particularly if you are a Jew suffering from anti-Semitism, is a tall order. It's a big ask.
But that's
I'm in no denial, but it's something that I think we have to have the mettle to do.
I mean, I completely agree with you, by the way. Banning them, this draconian approach, all it does is create more problems. It's not going to sort it out. And that's why I think it's critical that we address the root problem here. And by the way, I don't think it's just anti-Semitism that takes place nowadays. I proudly wear this. I often feel threatened wearing a union flag on my lapel because people automatically assume you're far right. If you want strong borders for the United Kingdom, you're far right. You want to reduce taxes, you're far right.
You don't feel that friend. You've got a collection.
I know.
Of pin.
I'm like, come and get me. I'm going to wear this with pride because this is the United Kingdom, and we've got to be much more robust in protecting and promoting that which is British. And it's got to start in the education establishments, the institutions, the businesses, the police forces, armed forces. All of these institutions need to understand what it means to be British and to promote that.
But we have to decide. I completely agree, I'm with you, but we have to decide what it does mean to be British.
Well, I'm pretty clear on it.
Problem is what?
Let him tell us that. Go on.
So what it doesn't include is castigating our forefathers, all as slave traders, forgetting the fantastic contribution we've made to the world, both in terms of peace and prosperity. The fact that Winston Churchill is not a white supremacist, but someone who won World War II for the free world, stood up against it. The fact that the United Kingdom has a proud history in all sorts of spheres. We get repeatedly told that if we were to leave the European Convention of Human Rights, we'd become a country without human rights. We established human rights, for God's sake. All of this narrative, all of it is anti-British. It's all against this flag. And I was on this show
So you might answer the question then. Because the question was, what does it mean to be British?
Would you ban that kind of discussion? I mean,
I wouldn't ban it, but I would educate people to understand what it means to be British.
Well, what does it mean?
Well, it means the contextual position that we hold right now comes from a very long line of fantastic contribution at every single level, both economically, legally, technologically, and we have emerged as this fantastic beacon, maybe not the greatest country on earth, but definitely the best, in my opinion, on earth. And yet we beat ourselves up. Yet we say it is important that we get immigrants to come into the country and do the jobs that we need done, that the Brits aren't prepared to work, that we won't cut taxes on the working and middle classes. We'll dumb down aspiration in favour of dependency. The whole British psyche is being eroded, and it's everywhere.
I don't want to be cruel, Ben, but you still haven't said what it is a set of British values would be.
Well, I think I have.
No, you said what you don't like about the current slagging off of Britain, and I think most people would have.
Yeah, but if you can reverse the current slagging off, you'll get to where I need you to be.
No, but you can't just say.
Well, you can't have an Archbishop of Canterbury putting £1 billion aside for £1 billion aside for slave reparations, because what that is signalling, Ella, what that is signalling is that this country has to hang its head in shame.
Yes,
and I'm not ashamed.
No. Yeah.
Let respond to you,
and so you shouldn't be. I think that a lot of that, whether it's the National Trust or anything else, sort of beating themselves about the past, doesn't help anyone. I also wouldn't want to be in a position where we are forced to be proud of our country in a way that's artificial. I think that, there should be some nuance there. I mean, there's plenty that this country has done. I'm Irish. There's plenty that this country has done that I will never be proud of and I'm still remain very angry about. But I think the more important thing is, and I think how we'll win people over, to having a sense of a collective identity, which is crucial. You have to, in order...
Well, do you agree DEI should be banned?
Yeah, I'd get rid of it. It's
great. That's a big step forward.
It would be and we've got a big fight to make that happen because it's sort of institutionalised.
Hang on, can I just say, if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's diversity, equality and inclusion. That's what it's talking about.
It's those kind of interventions into your workplace that make you say you have to think this way, you have to do things this way. It's a terrible overreach. But anyway, to get back to the issue of
it's a regulatory requirement, Ellen.
A national identity, I think, should be, if I was like Prime Minister tomorrow, I'd say that the British values are around a commitment to democracy, a commitment to tolerance, and a commitment to freedom of speech. And if you have that bedrock of society, if you have that idea that we all agree that this is something that we hold dear and should defend, then you can have debates about decolonisation and British history. You can have discussions about whatever aspect of the country, but you always agree that that bedrock of tolerance and
do you believe in
free speech
strong borders?
Is there?
Enforced borders?
I think that control is essential for a democratic society. That's what Brexit was a lot about. People think that Brexit was anti-immigration. I don't see it as that. I see it was about the idea that you would have control. Once we have that control, I would argue, as a sort of from a position of left internationalism, that we are liberal with our with the numbers and with our borders. But I wouldn't disagree with anyone that you would have absolute control and knowledge of exactly what was happening. I think part of the problem at the moment is that we don't have any control, the system doesn't work, and politicians are making it up on the hoof.
Do you not think to have a settled culture, you've got to have control of your borders? Because if you have immigration...
that's what I said, control, but I don't think... I think a settled...
Do you think our borders are controlled at the moment?
No, I think that there's a big problem. But I think the settled culture thing that you're talking about, that's maybe where we disagree, because I don't have I have a big problem with multiculturalism, which was I think we were talking about the sort of institutionalized policy of saying to everyone, you have to get along and you have to be, you have to integrate in this way.
It's not integrate. And it's not that you've got to get along,
but
it's that we've got to take the knee to other cultures.
Yeah, but I think perhaps what you've got to get a little bit better at, Ben, is explaining, I'm going into teacher mum mode, is because I think this is where people are not being won over, is the distinction between control and a sense of national identity and, an idea of what it means to be British that doesn't slip into saying there can't be any kind of difference or there can't be any kind of other cultures. And, I want to live in a world where we all there's lots of difference and whatever, but we have a sense of what it means to be a citizen of this country and the responsibilities and rights that you're afforded as a citizen.
I can hear you at home. You will be yelling at your screens.